Welcome to my review of the Boise State versus Oklahoma State game. I'm going to do something a little bit different in this video, partially because it's coming out so late, but also because, Utah State's on the horizon. We want to move forward. We want to look forward and attack the future. That's the Bronco. That's the Bronco mantra. Attack the future. So we want to be able to do that. We want to move past this defeat. So in order to do that, I want to hit. First is going through offense, defense, special teams, my 3 keys of the game like I normally would. I just want to hit the main reasons for defeat in this one, what Boise State needs to do to correct those to go forward, and then the 3 reasons that Boise State still has a lot to play for this season. Boise State, we're 3 games into the season. We still have all of the conference games to play. First conference matchup against Utah State this week. And Boise State, honestly, they were out of the New Year's Six hunt before the season basically even started. I've got a hiccups for I'm sorry, I'm hiccuping here. Before they even started, we had the loss to UCF. So Boise State was already out of the playoff hunt with that loss. At least the chances of getting to the playoff were very, very slim. And when UCF lost to Louisville, the chances got even slimmer. The best chance Boise State had was for UCF to go undefeated, Boise State to go undefeated with their only loss to UCF, and then that one loss being considered, UCF getting the group of 5 bid, and then Boise State getting an at-large spot. That was really the best chance Boise State had, and the UCF's loss to Louisville doomed them for that New Year's Six shot, if there was any on the table at all, before Boise State even kicked off against Oklahoma State. So Boise State is still playing for the same things they were this week that they were last week and the week before that, and we're going to hit those 3 things at the end of the video. But first, we're going to go into the 7 reasons, my 7 main reasons for defeat. I know I'm going to generalize, I'm going to hit my big points here. I know there's other little things, I know there's a lot of other big things potentially that I'm missing, but these are my 7 reasons. I'd love to hear in the comments what you think the main reasons for defeat are and what Boise State needs to do to go forward. But we're going to hit those real quick, get the negative out of the way, and then move on to the positive here. So first off, defense still gelling. This one's an obvious one. Boise State gave up over 240 yards, 246 to be exact, rushing yards in this game, and a lot of that was just because of inconsistencies on the defensive end. Boise State's defense, I thought, played really well in this one overall. Held Oklahoma State to 21 points, looked extremely aggressive out there, but wasn't consistent. And it wasn't even the fact that I talked about Boise State needing to stay aggressive in this one. And going, all out blitzes and that kind of thing. And they would give up some big plays. But I expected those big plays to come in the passing game. Because Boise State, if you're going all out defensively in the play calling, the one thing you shouldn't be missing is the running back. If you have all of your players from the secondary and the linebacker core at the line of scrimmage, the running back shouldn't be getting through you. And one of the reasons for that is that while Boise State was very aggressive as far as how their players were attacking this game, and Boise State was aggressive from time to time, they kept dropping back into coverage despite the fact that Saunders couldn't throw the ball to save his life. They kept dropping back into coverage, they kept expecting pass, and they really allowed the running plays to happen. I mean, Walker's 2 big plays, they showed it on the replay, both happened because the corner cleared out when he was clearly being blocked, and the wide receiver was able to get a 2-for-1 because he was going down to crack the safety who he got out of the way, and then the corner was already out of the way. So Walker basically had 2 of his biggest runs, at least over 100 plus yards of his 200-yard night on 2 plays that were basically the same thing, where Boise State, instead of being aggressive in the play calling department, was dropping back into coverage. So part of that, like I said, defense still gelling, not understanding their assignments, on that. Not understand, because if the defender is making a beeline for the safety, the cornerback doesn't need to be following him all the way there. So part of the reason is the defense still not gelling as they need to, not having that team chemistry, which is an issue I talked about before that they really showed last year. It's a defense that has playmakers across the board, but not consistently across the board. I mean, they have key playmakers in a lot of different positions, but not in all the positions, and definitely don't have the depth defensively that Boise State needs to be a dominant defense. You can't just have 11 guys out there who are top of their tier. You need to have 22 or more guys out there, so when you got to pull your first stringers for a play or so, you don't lose an edge, especially when it comes down to the defensive line, which the coach is already saying Boise State is lacking so much depth on that front, they might have to play a true freshman next week, and that definitely showed in this one. So Boise State, defense overall, still gelling, still trying to find their assignments, still trying to find the chemistry, trying to find those guys who are going to step up and be that blue-collar work ethic for them, but definitely a reason that Boise State lost this game. Number 6. So as you can see, I'm going least culpable to most culpable for the loss. Number 6, ball control. 2 turnovers. Can't have that in a game that you really have to have a lot of things break your way to win anyway, considering that this is not a top-tier Boise State team of the past. It's a team that really was going to have to win it in the coaching battle, really, because this was not a team that has been able to go out and recruit as effectively as they have in past years. So they don't have, you know, the first tier draft or, you know, first round, second round draft talent across all positions like they have had that potential in the past. I mean, Boise State, Khalil Shakir is likely a first round pick, even though he doesn't necessarily have some of the measurables that people are looking for. I think skill wise he is, and you could argue that a couple players, especially J.L. Skinner, potentially first round pick in the defensive side of things. But Boise State really is a team that is kind of playing beyond what their stats, what their high school stats said they were capable of, and they're really showing up and showing out. Boise State's always gone after those guys that are going to be under-recruited, but it's also a Boise State team that really was overmatched in this battle. Even though they played really well in the first half and looked like the better team, they needed things to break their way, and that fumble definitely was not what they needed. Totally switched things. They lost all their momentum, allowed Oklahoma State to come roaring back into this one. You never want to give a team that's already coming in with some advantages in those speed and height battles. You never wanted to give a team like that an advantage. That fumble definitely lost the momentum, and the interception really killed a lot of it, or potential, in the second half. Even though Boise State did have a chance there at the end, if they hadn't had those 2 turnovers, things might have gone a lot differently. But even beyond just turning the ball over by giving the ball to the other team through interceptions and fumbles, but I'm also talking about ball control as far as the ability to control the ball on drives. And Boise State only scored on 4 out of 12 possessions. Boise State had an opportunity to score on that last field goal, but other than that, Boise State punted, had an interception, fumble, or blocked field goal on 8 out of 12 drives. And that is another issue of ball control that kind of gets overlooked when a team cannot go out there and complete drives. And we're going to address the real reason for that here in a second, and that is the offensive line. Number 5 on our list here, offensive line. Boise State's inability to run the ball because Boise State keeps trying to be a balanced attack, the inability to run the ball has really, really hurt them. Only 61 yards rushing on the ground. Again, another abysmal rushing performance that matches 11 yards better, but still matches the terrible performance against UCF. But beyond that, Boise State also wasn't able to block up front, and that was another reason they were able to complete drives. So block up front in the passing game as well as the rushing game. Boise State allowed 4 sacks on Bachmeier, 7 quarterback hurries, and even when he was able to get the ball off, he was hit countless times. And that really, going to move on to point number 4 here, is down to the play calling. Boise State knows that they just don't have the offensive linemen this year to be able to go out and be a balanced attack. They just don't. You know, you can do a lot of things with the coaching, you can do a lot of things with schemes, but at the end of the day, it's going to come down to the flesh and blood on the field and how big that flesh and blood sack is, how big that guy is, how fast he is, and what kind of awareness he has. And you cannot take a player who just isn't at the level that is needed for an offensive scheme and keep trying to smash him into your offensive scheme. You've got to look at the players that you have on the field and adapt your scheme to them versus trying to take your players and fit them into your scheme. It's not going to work. You have to look at what you have with you, and Boise State is not doing that. Boise State does not have a running game. Even with Helani on the field, even with their best running back on the field, they still don't have a running game. And that's because they're getting hit before they even cross the line of scrimmage. When they do cross the line of scrimmage, it doesn't matter anyway because the line's not moving. Boise State, out of 70 plays, they ran the ball 35 times and they passed the ball 35 times. Boise State's always been a balanced team. They had, go back years. They've always had a quarterback who go out there and throw it a million miles, or you be the face of the team, and they've had a running back who can rush for over 1,000 yards. But that's not this Boise State team. This offensive line does not have it in them to be able to be a balanced attack team. Now, what Boise State does have is an incredible depth of wide receivers, extremely talented wide receivers. Every week I hear a name of a guy I've never even heard of before, or who I've barely heard of coming into the season. I mean, Billy Bowen's, I think he had like 7 catches last season. He's been great this year. Cutter, that's the first time I remember hearing his name called as far as wide receiver. He had his first touchdown catch this week. And then you call out the guys you already have out there who are incredibly talented, who we knew about coming into the season: Evans, Shakir, C.T. Thomas. Boise State has an incredible wealth of wide receivers, and they should be using them and knowing what they have up front, which is an offensive line that isn't able to block consistently, and giving Bachmeier a wealth of options out there every single play that he can just rifle the ball off to. If he has time, he can throw it deep, and if he doesn't, he's got to have a lot of short passing and outlet routes that he can get the ball off to and get those running backs involved in the game too. That was one of my keys to the game here, was get the running backs involved in the passing game. Boise State's running back, Helani, averaged 13 yards per catch, and Cyrus on his one catch had 20-yard reception. So use the running backs, but just don't try to force them up the run game, because when you do that, you're basically giving up on that play. You're not going to get anywhere, and it's not working. You're basically guaranteeing that in the best of cases, this running back, the running back abilities that Boise State has right now, sorry, not the running back abilities, but the running game abilities that Boise State has, in the best of cases, you're probably going to get 5 yards. You might break off a 20-yard scamper. You might be able to break off a touchdown like Alani had last week against 2 weeks ago against UTEP. But in most of the cases this year, that's not going to be what's happened. And all you're going to do is kill the momentum that you've been developing. You're better off with just a short screen pass or a short out route for 3 or 4 yards, which you're pretty much guaranteed to pick up, because Boise State's wide receivers are open pretty much any time that they want to throw the ball to them. You have a better chance of completing that, and the coaches need to know that. So a big issue in this one is the play calling. Second half, Boise State, I think, only had one run over 5 yards. It was Cyrus on the 8-yard run there. And Boise State, it wasn't as bad against UCF. I'll give them credit. They learned a little bit from UCF, and they didn't keep trying to run it on every first down like they did against UCF in the third quarter. But they did keep trying to run it a lot more than they should have, and that definitely took the air out of their sails on a lot of these drives that could have otherwise have turned out a lot better. Now, having said that, if you're going to be an air raid style team, which is what I'm pleading with Boise State to use Tim Plow and his offensive mind, that's what he knows at UC Davis. I'm pleading with Boise State to switch to an air raid style, not forever. I'm not saying we need to be the new Washington State, but at least this season, I'm pleading with Boise State to move to what works for them, to use their players' abilities on the field and get them into what they'll be able to succeed in, which is air raid style. But in order to do that, you've got to have a quarterback who is able to be accurate consistently, and we didn't see that this week. Bachmeier's inaccuracies really hurt Boise State. He had at least 4 major overthrows in this one, including what was my estimate, 3 guaranteed touchdowns. I mean, that first, I think it was the first play of the game, but early play of the game, where he missed a wide open. I mean, it was beautiful how open he was. Wide open Shakir, which would have been a guaranteed touchdown. And then he missed Cutter in the end zone for a potential touchdown. I think if he'd been able to just kind of pull the ball down a little bit and get it into, just get it a little bit more into his range, because he only just barely missed him, but it was definitely no overthrow. And then, of course, that last play that Boise had to go for the field goal, that was another one there. Just some major overthrows. Of course, the interception into double coverage, which we've already kind of talked about in the ball control issue, but Bachmeier, I said it in one of my keys to the game that he would have to be accurate in this one if Boise State wanted to win this, because of the height advantage that the Oklahoma State defenders had, and because of because of the route running ability that Boise State's receivers have. They're good at running these routes. They can get open, but they weren't going to get open every time. And Boise State had to take advantage of the few times they were going to be able to get open for those deep plays, and Boise State missed on at least 4 of them. Or it's definitely 3. That interception would have been hard to fit in either way, but Boise State missed wide open receivers who ran great routes, who had that ball breaking their way, and ended up missing. I said Boise State had to have a lot of things break their way to win this one, and Boise State had those things break their way and were not able to capitalize. A big issue was the inaccuracies in this game. The second reason here is blocked field goal. Obviously, we're coming down to the top three here. I think the inaccuracies definitely was a major reason between the interception and the missed touchdowns, taking those points off the board. Well, you could say those are potential points off the board. This was definite points off the board. A blocked field goal is always going to be an issue here. Now, it was by the thinnest of margins. Boise State lost this game, 1 point loss by the thinnest margins. Well, they also missed the field goal by the thinnest of margins. You looked on the replay, and the play callers were saying that if the glove had been a size smaller, it probably would have missed. I mean, it was that close, barely chipped the fingernail. But that's all it takes on a ball, the way the football moves, and the way that it's already going up there, and it's kind of an awkward ball as far as the way that it kicks. Just one small little touch on one of these particles here, is going to be enough to throw it off, especially on a field goal kick when precision is what is most desired. That's going to be enough to throw off the kick, and he did. The Oklahoma State defender did barely touch that ball, and it was blocked. But you know what? That kick, I love Dalmas. I really, really do. I think that he is a great kicker for Boise State. He's one of the greatest kickers that we've ever had, and that we will have. I mean, he's going to be here for a long time. He's been extremely accurate, and this was actually his first miss from under 40 yards in his entire time at Boise State. But that was not his best kick. It wasn't a bad kick. If it hadn't been touched, it would have gone in. But it was only 38 yards, and he kicked that thing like it was a 50-yard field goal. He sent in a line drive kick that was much lower than it should have been for a short kick from 40 yards. And really, as a kicker, you want to be able to use all the space that you can. If you don't need to drill that ball in, you want to be able to use the height to be able to get it over those lucky touches or those jumping defensive players coming down to try and block your kick. And he kicked that ball way too low. So I'm not putting the block necessarily completely on Dalmas here. It was very lucky that the Oklahoma State player was able to touch that one. But it also wasn't his best kick. And I think that he's going to need to reevaluate that, to change how he does some things going forward. He's got a hell of a leg. He can kick it wherever he wants to on the field. He's incredibly accurate. Like I said, first miss from under 40 yards, and he has a couple 50-plus yards as well. So he's an incredible kicker for Boise State. He really is. You cannot blame this loss on Dalmas. It's not his fault that we lost this game. It comes down to a lot of other things, but the blocked field goal was definitely key in losing this one. And if that kick had just been a couple of feet higher, or even if it had been half an inch higher, Boise State would have probably walked away with a victory in this one. Now, talking about walking away with a victory, talking about things not going your way, things not breaking your way, the number one issue, and Boise State is culpable in this one. They have a lot of things that they need to fix that if they'd done differently, or if they'd been able to play just a little bit better, it's a matter of inches like we saw in that field goal, Boise State would have walked away with this one. The defense needs to get better, needs to get more consistent. The offensive scheme needs to be overhauled and thrown into, they need to use their players more efficiently. But the number one reason that Boise State lost this game was the refereeing. I cannot believe that Mike Gundy went up afterwards and called out crooked refs against Oklahoma State. They had basically one bad call against Oklahoma State on a questionable roughing the passer call that I don't think was roughing the passer, but it's bang bang. A questionable roughing the passer call, that didn't result in anything. It resulted in a missed field goal. And if anything, it was going to result in Boise State having the ball a little bit closer, but not close enough where they were going to be guaranteed a touchdown. They weren't in the red zone with that. They were still having to go for a field goal at the end of the day. So it really wasn't that impactful a call regardless. Boise State was still having to work extremely hard to score, which they ended up not doing. But you know what is a horrible call? You know what is a call that loses a game? Is when you have a fumble that you have a ref standing right there. And it was clear and obvious from the replay, and it was clear and obvious from those who were watching on TV and in the stands as well from the people I've talked to. When you have a fumble that gets picked up and returned, you are taught as a ref to let the play out. I cannot tell you how many times I've heard referees say that they should let the play out. In fact, a few years ago, it was an actual point of emphasis by the referee, the referee. I don't remember what they're called, but the referee association, it was a point of emphasis to let the plays play out and to fix it with replay. That's what replay's there for. If you let the play out and you made the wrong call, you can always bring the ball back. But if you blow a play dead, you can't do anything. Even if the players on the field didn't play any differently because they blew the play dead, they didn't hear the whistle. The Skinner was going to score whether the ref blew the whistle or not. And he did, and the Oklahoma State players were still trying their hardest to tackle him all the way through to the end there, until he got within 10 yards, and he was in the end zone anyway. There wasn't an Oklahoma State player near him. So that is a situation. The referee needs to be better, but it also needs to be a situation where if you have a clear, it's like when you overturn a fumble in the field and you had a clear and obvious recovery and you can reverse it for the other team's favor. If you have a clear and obvious score where there's nothing the other team could have done, you should be able to reverse that. I know that is not in the books. I know that there would be a lot of wiggle room there, but my goodness, that was a horrible call. And that took off 7 points off the game, which definitely lost Boise State the game. Boise State absolutely lost the game at that point. If they played better in the rest of the game, they wouldn't have been in that situation. But the fact is, Boise State's defense was dominant in the fourth quarter. And honestly, they were pretty dominant in the second half overall. Like I said, they only gave up, I said it right here, only gave up, there it is, 78 yards. They only gave up 78 yards rushing in the second half. Allowed 168 yards in the first half, but only 78 yards rushing in the second half. They were shutting Oklahoma State down. There was under 3 minutes on the clock. The Sounders had shown no ability to pass the ball whatsoever. If Boise State scores a touchdown there, they win the game. They don't have to go for a field goal. There's no chance of it being blocked. They absolutely win the game, and 7 points were taken off the board. That's not even talking, I mean, when you're talking about that referee, that's not even talking about the bad PI call, pass interference call, on an absolutely clearly replay, absolutely should have confirmed uncatchable pass that got called pass interference on 3rd and 18, pass interference called against Robinson, 3rd and 18, which put BYU, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself, put Oklahoma State in the red zone, 6 yards out, was able to punch it in on a rushing score. So Boise State had 14-point swing taken off the board because of the refereeing. The first one, not as impactful because Boise State can make up for that later on. But the second one, absolutely, when you take a touchdown on the board, I don't care what you say, that is key. That is absolutely definitive as a reason that Boise State lost this game. You know, defense should have been better, offense should have been better. You can always say that. You can always point fingers and you can always add it all up together, mix it together, and it will come out with a win. But when you take points off the board, that to me is conclusive as and especially with the time that was left, Boise State lost this game because of refereeing. Should they have been played better? Yes, they should have. Would that have won them the game? Probably. But the main reason, when you look at everything that happened, when you looked at what, should they have been played better? Yes, they didn't. When you look at what happened on the field, Oklahoma State did not win this game. The referees won the game for Oklahoma State. Boise State should have walked away with a win, and they didn't. And that's what hurts the most. If you watch my preview video, you know that I thought Boise State was going to lose this game. I said if Boise State played this game 2 or 3 weeks later, they probably would have won it. And honestly, all of you guys who are calling for Andy Avalos to get fired after 3 games into the season and Boise State sitting at 1-2, this is what part of rebuild year do you not understand? Boise State is in a rebuild year this season. They are. Boise State is not going to go out and dominate against every team like they have in past years. They're going to get to that level with Avalos, but it's going to take time. But I thought, like I said, if Boise State had played this game 2 or 3 weeks later, they would have won this game. And I thought Boise State was going to lose by more than they did. And Boise State absolutely looked capable of winning this game. And that is a huge credit to Avalos. They shouldn't have been as close as they were at this point in the season, and they were. They were in this game. They should have won it. The referees stole it from Boise State, but they were in this game to the end there because of the job that Avalos is doing. So don't blame this on Avalos. Avalos is doing the best that he can with what the players that he's got. He does, especially in the play calling department, some things need to get changed, but he is moving Boise State in the right direction. Boise State is playing with more spirit, they're playing more aggressively, and they're playing in a more exciting manner, and there's more hope, I think, play to play than there has been in past seasons under Boise State in recent years. Avalos is the right guy for the job. He's going to get us there. You can quote me on this in a couple of seasons, but Boise State in 2 years, at next season, the season beyond that, is going to be a team that is going to be right there for New Year's Six, if not going to New Year's Six under Avalos. He's the guy for us. The fact that we were close enough that the referees ended up stealing the game from us, and the Boise State was close enough to be able to win this one, is a huge credit to Avalos. All right, the camera angle is going to get a little bit worse on this towards the end here, and that's because my battery is dying in my phone. So I'm going to do this to finish up because I don't want the camera to die. But I'm almost to the end, and we're going to just hit these last 3 points real quick. All right, so what does Boise State still have? My camera's a little straight there. I'll rest my hand. All right, Boise State, what do they have to play for now? So they've lost. They're 1-2. They've lost 2 games. They're out of the New Year's Six. We understand that. I'm going to try and set it right here, see if that works. Okay, there we go. You can stare down my chins. Okay, so Boise State, they're 1-2. They're out of the New Year's Six. We know that. We knew that before we came into this game. But Boise State still has a ton to play for this season, and it's a rebuilding year, but it can be an exciting rebuilding year. Boise State can still go out and play for, Boise State can, as fans, we can still go out and root for an incredible amount of success this year. And it starts off, first off, with a conference championship. Boise State, that's the #1 thing they have left to play for this season, is they can play for a conference championship. We haven't even played the conference season yet. Well, next week, now it's not going to be an easy road. You know, it's going to only get harder from here. We play a 3-0 Utah State team. We'll play a Wyoming team who's 3-0 so far. We play Fresno State, who's ranked now. San Diego State is undefeated. Nevada looks really good. We play an incredibly tough schedule, probably one of the toughest in the conference, honestly, as far as across the board, the teams that we're mixing together. The Mountain Division and the West Division. So Boise State plays an incredibly tough schedule, but we can still win that conference championship. And I think at the end of the season, Boise State is absolutely going to be right in the mix for that. Are they going to be undefeated in conference? I don't think so, but I think that they are going to be close enough with 1 or 2 losses, something like that, where they're going to be in contention for that Mountain West championship. The West Division, the Mountain Division representative, and a chance to go win it. Boise State absolutely still has that on the line, and that's what Boise State, Avalos said it himself in his press conference. He said, the great thing about this team is they always have that conference championship as their #1 goal, and that hasn't changed. Boise State, the improvement that they've shown through 3 weeks, like I said, being as close as they were in this game, when I thought that they would have needed a lot more improvement than they did. The fact that they were as close as they were means that Boise State is ahead of the curve. And the team we play play Utah State next week, and the game after that, and the game after that, the teams that we see down the road are going to be completely different than this one. Is the offensive line going to still be struggling? Yes. Is the defense going to be not up to 100%? Yes. But Boise State is going to be better than they have been, and you're going to see a team, I think you're going to see an offensive scheme adapt better to what their players' abilities are, and you're going to see a defense that's going to be much more consistent overall, and Boise State's going to be a lot more to handle in the first 3 games the rest of the season, and that conference championship is a big potential for Boise State, that they are still 100% in control of their own destiny going into this week's matchup against Utah State. The #2 reason here, revenge. This was the revenge season. Boise State is playing a ton of teams that they lost to. It's rare for Boise State to come into a season and have a ton of teams that they have to go out and get revenge against. But that's the fact of the matter is that Boise State has not been as dominant as they should be or have been in past years. And they've allowed themselves to get a little bit behind the curve, even within their own conference, in some of these matchups against rivals in their conference. Now, Oklahoma State was the first team on the revenge tour, and that one didn't go as Boise State wanted. It was this close, and we were definitely closer in this one than we were last season, 2018. 2018? Yeah, 2018, because that's when we had Brett Rippon. So Boise State was definitely closer in this one than they were in the last matchup. But the first revenge game's off the schedule. Didn't manage to catch that one. But Boise State has 3 other teams that they need to beat this year who beat them in the previous matchup. BYU has beaten them 2 out of the last times that Boise State has played, and this looks like a good BYU team. Now, Romney's having to come in to play. We're going to see if he plays up to the same level as the current BYU quarterback, but this is still a good BYU team. It's a BYU team that is now ranked, and that's going to be a big challenge. But that's next on the revenge tour. Then you've got Fresno State, who beat Boise State the last time they played in the Mountain West Conference Championship game in 2018, Battle for the Milk Can. And then the final game of the season against San Diego State, they own the win against Boise State again in 2018. A lot of losses there against rivals in 2018. So Boise State has everything to play for when it comes to conference championship, and they still can go 3 out of 4 on the revenge tour this year. That is huge for Boise State to be able to put those rivals in their place. It's not going to be easy. Those are very, very good teams that Boise State's going to come up against, but that is still something that Boise State fans can look forward to this year. And the final bit, I say it every year, it doesn't matter how you've played so far, it matters how you finish, and that especially matters for Boise State. People like to say that they don't care about the rankings. They like to say that the AP poll, the preseason polls aren't important. They like to say that, but the truth of the matter is they are. Especially now that the BCS system is gone. There's no more computers making up rankings for the teams. It's all down to people. People are biased, and they are incredibly biased against Mountain West teams. And teams like Boise State have to finish strong the year before if they want a chance of being able to hit anything the next year. What you can achieve matters on where you start. It really does. If you start out like Cincinnati in the top 10, you could be a potential playoff contender, or at least in the discussion for that, playoff dark horse. If you start outside of the top 25, you might not even be a chance in for a New Year's Six, regardless of if you go undefeated or not, because of where you started out at the beginning. Now, the playoff committee, the way it was originally designed, was supposed to get rid of that. It was supposed to reset and it not matter. But the truth of the matter is that it has. At the top tier, top 10 teams, the playoff committee, those are the teams that the playoff committee actually cares about because they're incredibly biased against the Power 5. Top 10 teams, now those will be significantly different from the AP. But when you look at the teams beyond them, behind them, there is a lot of teams that end up matching up exactly. And the American Athletic Conference, over the last few seasons, regardless of head-to-head, regardless of which conference has the most Power 5 wins, regardless of the records, Mountain West teams are having to basically go undefeated throughout the season to have a chance of jumping into the top 25, and even then they're not supplanting the AAC. So Boise State, if they can finish strong this season, have a 0-0 mentality every single week trying to get to 1-0, but especially if they can take this loss, turn it into something positive, and if they could win out the rest of the year, but even if they can play well the rest of this season and show that they're a team that is on the rise under Avalos, that they're a team that is developing into a team that's going to be the top of the group of 5 to be a contender, then Boise State has a chance of coming into next season, especially if they can keep players from transferring or deciding to leave. I think all the players on the roster have one more year of eligibility, all the key ones at least. We do have a couple of super seniors, but we do have like Shakir, Halani, Bachmeyer. They could all come back if they wanted to. If Boise State can keep its key players and get some new guys in the recruiting class and finish the season strong, they have a really good chance of starting next season in the top 25. And the higher they can get, even in the others receiving votes category, if they can't break the top 25, is all the higher they can get, the better, and all that starts with ending the season well this year. So the 3 things that Boise State does to play for this season: conference championship, still there. Boise State, and that's where our expectation levels should really be. If we can win a conference championship in a rebuilding year, that is a huge win for Boise State, and that's how Avalos wants to start his career. Second, go get those revenge wins. Go get those big letter wins that you can wave in the faces of recruits that you're recruiting against. We do a lot of recruiting in California, and BYU has stolen a lot of recruits from us. So if we can wave that win, that is a big win for the recruiting trail, and it's a big win for this program. And then setting up for next season. Those are the 3 big reasons. Now, very briefly here, just going to grade my offense, defense, special teams, and keys of the game. Offense, C+, defense, B+, special teams, C+. That's all I'm going to say about it. I've already gone in depth here, 33 minutes in. Keys of the game, Bachmeyer, accurate. Already talked in depth about that, C-. Defense, stay aggressive, A-. The aggressiveness was there. They really played well aggressively. Just the play calling wasn't as consistent as it should have been. I've already talked about that. As far as the aggressiveness, I mean, especially J.L. Skinner, oh my goodness, Boise State looked angry out there. And then get backs involved in the passing game, C+. When they were there in the passing game, 3 receptions for 46 yards, they looked great. But they weren't used enough. They kept trying to use them in the run game. If they had, if you took those 35 runs and turned them into 35 pass attempts to the running backs, you probably would have seen a much different result in this one, because the backs, when you were able to get them out in the flat or the wheel route beyond the line of scrimmage, which was already sucking anyway, get them beyond the line of scrimmage and be able to make their plays in the open field, which is what our guys do so well, especially Helani, but even Cyrus. If you get those guys out in the open field, get them into the passing game, and be able to make a couple breaks without getting hit in the backfield, my goodness, you have another huge offensive weapon who's going to be able to do great things for you. So Boise State didn't do that, so they're getting a C+, but I really hope that they see that potential moving forward. All right, that's my video. I'm 34 minutes in, and I definitely went longer than I wanted to, but I think we hit the key points here. A lot for Boise State to be able to improve going forward, but still a ton to play for this season. The season's not over, Bronco Nation. You got to trust the process. Avos will get us there eventually, but we can still play for a lot this year. So thank you for watching this video. If you're not a member of Bronco Nation Updates, make sure you go on. And as always, if you like these videos, make sure you like and subscribe. But as always, go Big Blue.